Dr. John Bruni from Sage International and the presenter of the Focus podcast is on the line, I think. Are you there,
I
Doctor?
am.
God bless.
I am. How are you?
Good. You're well?
Yeah, well, I've got a frog in my throat right now, which is really weird. But yeah, apart from that, I'm fine.
We've just done a story on bees. You know, we in looking, and particularly talking to you with the macro side of things, the really bigger, larger than life kind of things, and yet going on in parallel, this incredible world without which we cannot live, of bees doing their little thing, not causing any trouble, not going on strike, no civil wars, no rebellions. They just collect the honey and go back to the hive. And now they're finding that it's not that simple for them anymore.
Well, yes, there's a whole colony collapse issue that we're struggling with. And of course, if we're talking about national security problems, food security is directly related to what you're saying, because of course bees cross-pollinate between plants and are needed for us to have a viable agricultural system and plants for air to breathe. So I mean, bees are not to be underestimated, and they might be micro in terms of our thinking. They're just small little critters going about their business, but they do have a macro or big picture effect if we allow them just to die out.
It's all part of this intricate mosaic that is life in all its complexity. And tell me, John, what is Trump up to? What does he think he's doing by having this running commentary on how close he is to doing a deal with Iran?
I don't know, Jeremy. I mean, every day breeds another cycle of, oh my God, really? And, and this week has just been one day after another of, oh my God, really? He keeps on tweeting.
Yeah, he's done it. He's done it. He's on the air this morning saying he's done it. It's done. It's all done. Yeah, it's all done. It's just we'll make the announcement. I think we'll go to Europe and make the announcement. Yeah, we'll go to Europe and make the announcement. Yeah. But it's over. The war's over. I fixed it.
Yeah. Well, look, there are things that your listeners have to understand about this. I mean, both the United States and its allies, as well as the Iranians, have been hit quite heavily as a consequence of this war, both from an economic perspective and a military perspective. Is there a desire for both sides to come to some form of agreement sooner rather than later? Yes. Is Trump continually tweeting, tacoing, and doing all other weird Trump-related things, adding or subtracting from the complexity of finalizing an agreement so the oil can start shipping back out from the Strait of Hormuz? Well, I'm not so sure. Trump's been helping himself or the international community. I wish he would just shut up and let the diplomats actually sort this thing out. There is a point at which too much Trump is just simply too much Trump. And he's getting in the way of his own success. I mean, if truly there is going to be a negotiated settlement between the IRGC and the Trump administration, then just shut up and go about it. And then when the deal is signed, tell us. But don't tell us every thought bubble or brain fart that comes through, I'm gonna bomb the civilization, I'm gonna take Card Island. It's all very good for him to go about and say this because it makes him seem like the invincible, great, immortal man that we all have to bow and scrape toward. But by God, just shut up and do the job. I'm so sick of hearing about this guy.
Yeah, but surely he must get embarrassed when he says, "Oh, we've done the deal," and then the Ayatollah or the assistant Ayatollah says, "We haven't spoken to him. We know nothing about this." I mean, he must feel a little bit diminished in the credibility department, surely.
Well, because Trump is so over the top, the Iranians are playing their own propaganda here, and they can be as calm, cool, and collected and disciplined as they like, and that's also a great advantage for them. But they too are overextending, and they too are, beating their own chest over their own success. and they do like to poke fun at Trump. And I mean, you don't have to be an Einstein in international relations to pick up your latest Instagram feed to see the Lego cartoons that the Iranian propagandists have been flooding the stream with, and many of them are very clever. But they go to the heart of the beast, right? They go to the heart of Trump and the buffoon that he actually is. See, the problem with Trump isn't so much that he doesn't have an idea that there is a war going on which is not good for the world and that it needs to end. He just doesn't let the process happen. So again, he's getting in the way of his own success. And if he keeps doing this for much longer, we're going to be in some serious strife. I was just doing some statistical comparisons before I came on, and you know that when ships turn off their transponders, which many of them have been doing to try to escape their entrapment within the Persian Gulf, they can sneak through around 10 to 20 commercial vessels per day. And as far as I can tell from the available open source information, that's how many vessels are sneaking through the blockade of the blockade. Because of course the Iranians have blockaded Hormuz, as has and Trump has blockaded Iranian ports allegedly. So and when we do a comparison, so prior to February 28th, when the war started, we had 125 to about 140 vessels going through the Strait of Hormuz. And these vessels travel very, very slowly. So to, build up that head of steam, we've got to have lots and lots of vessels offloading their cargo and loading up their cargo and shipping out. And it's kind of like a slow bicycle race around the world with these ships because they move very, very slowly. But when they get to their destination, you've always got a ship somewhere offloading or reloading. And so there is a flow of traffic that goes through. Well, that flow of traffic is now down by roughly if I'm more optimistic, 15% of normal shipping capacity. It's putting a real crimp on international growth and our economies, obviously. How much pain Trump is willing to endure is anyone's guess. But
Mm.
I was having a discussion with some friends of mine yesterday, and one of them, who's a bit of a conspiracy theorist, I like hanging out with conspiracy theorists. They're very fun. But one was saying, well, this is all part of Trump's plan to dominate the oil export industry, because of course now America is the number one oil exporter in the world, and of course being a capitalist country, they quite like the idea that they're the ones selling the world the oil and the diesel to make the world happen. Of course, that may be true, but from a quantitative perspective, it's the Persian Gulf that matters because 20% of global needs. And that's not just the oil and the diesel and the gas. It's all the byproducts from fossil fuels come out of the Gulf. We're talking about plastic. We're talking about helium. We're talking about
Fertilizer.
fertilizer.
Yeah, yeah.
All of these things, if they don't hit the market soon, we're going to have a very disaggregated and strange growing season in the northern hemisphere, and then it's going to hit us in the in the southern hemisphere as well, obviously. But it's going to be like the northern hemisphere will have their first really poor crop because they didn't have enough fertilizer, or their fertilizer stocks are so thin that they can only spread it over a certain amount of terrain. And then, of course, the follow up will be Australia, and so we're going to end up having two really bad years in terms of agricultural products hitting the market. That'll mean that we may not be able to get all the things that we're used to in the supermarket shelves, for instance. That's going to freak a lot of people out. So the longer this war goes on, the worse it gets for everybody, including the Americans, in spite of their number one oil exporter situation. So again, I go back to the idea that yes, the Iranians and the Americans want a deal, but there is another actor in all of this. We tend to think that this is just a war between America and Iran. It isn't. It is a war between America and Israel and Iran. And Israel can act as a spoiler, as it has done in southern Lebanon, because, of course, Hezbollah in southern Lebanon is one of Iran's key allies, which it wants to keep upright. The Israelis, on the other hand, want to smash it to pieces. So the Iranians have said to the Americans, if you don't, put your dog back on the leash, And if you don't stop Netanyahu from, doing whatever else, we will continue striking Gulf targets. And we've only seen recently, as the war hit again over the last couple of days, the Iranians still have significant military offensive capacity, and they can do damage, and they can target pretty accurately where American bases are located in the region. So there is still many millions of dollars of damage that can be done just on a military to military confrontation. Can Iran sustain this? That's a difficult question to answer. Battle damage assessment after the initial kinetic strikes that the Israelis and Americans launched against Iran in late February, early March, they all said, well, I mean, Trump himself has come out in his blowhard fashion saying, we've destroyed everything, we've obliterated. I don't think he knows what the word means, but nonetheless, he said that, and so therefore we're all meant to accept it as fact. Then there were other more sane assessments of Iran's military capability, suggesting that maybe not all of Iran's missile silos, mobile missile launchers have been smashed to pieces. And I think the last couple of days has shown quite clearly that Iran still has the capacity to kick the Americans where it hurts. They can't afford to have another major go at it, because if they do, see, what people don't understand about Iran, Jeremy, is that in the end, if it comes down to a major end of times kind of confrontation, the Iranians will take all of Iran down with them rather than concede to America and give away the farm. They will not give away the farm. They'd rather die than give away the farm. This is the kind of mentality that the Americans are dealing with. They've dealt with this mentality before in the war on terrorism, but funnily enough, they seem to have forgotten about many of these difficulties of dealing with people who, have within their own mindset that their death will bring about the change that they want, because you can't fight that easily. You can kill a couple of people, you can damage some buildings, but in the end, when your enemy just sees you as the existential threat and keeps on throwing body after body and blowing stuff up and not caring whether the Iranian economy is upright or not, because it isn't functioning well, but they don't care, and they'll drag all of Iran into this mess.
You'd think they'd have got a taste of that in Afghanistan. It was the same sort of absolute maniacal fanaticism.
It was, and I totally agree with you. But the thing is that we're dealing with Donald Trump. I mean, most other sane presidents. I mean, Trump is, and this is about as polite as I'll make it. Trump is mercurial, right?
Yeah.
So he changes his mind. He gets up one day, has a bad day, decides to bomb something. Then he goes, "Oh, I better not do that," and then he pulls back. So of course he's got a really inconsistent approach to everything, and his constant public signaling is not helping the diplomacy behind the scenes reach a proper settlement. Because as soon as Trump then blows another truth tweet social out, then the Iranians pick up on that, and then they say, oh, well, maybe we can do something else to the Americans, which just drags the process out further and further. If the guy just shut his bloody mouth and someone took his phone away from him, maybe we will get a deal over the weekend, but I'm not so sure.
How does it,
whether we get it.
How does it actually work, Doctor? How does it work? I would have thought that the way a military action, if the Americans were going to go in there and bomb them last night or tonight, it wouldn't be something that the president decided, would it? Wouldn't there be a joint chiefs of staff or military people sitting around a table or looking at this huge map on the wall and making considered decisions? Yet you get the feeling that Trump says, "I've just cancelled the attack. I've just cancelled the flight." That's not how it works, is it?
Well, allegedly it does right now, Jeremy. And look, I think that there are many things that one can say about how the Trump administration functions. I mean, first and foremost, we all know that Trump has surrounded himself with yes men. And, you can talk about the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth being one of them. I mean, there would be no way in hell, even if the Joint Chiefs of Staff sat down with Pete Hegseth and said, look, Pete, I think this is a rotten idea. What they'll do is they'll just move those generals aside and replace them with people who will say what Pete Hegseth wants to hear, who then will relay it back to Donald Trump and Hegseth will tell Donald Trump what he
Well,
wants.
where is that sort of thinking and strategy? Where's that going to lead America?
Well, I mean, we're seeing what it's leading to in real time right now. It's leading to chaos. And again, if we stay on the Gulf, anything that happens doesn't just stay contained to these two powers. Israel can play the spoiling role. Netanyahu's got his own domestic political problems in Israel. He needs the war to continue for the simple reason is that if he doesn't have anything that he can tell the Israelis, oh my God, you're under an existential threat by Iran, you're under an existential threat by Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. We're all buggered if you don't surround and support me in my endeavors to push the Israeli agenda outwards. Well, okay, so then how much control has Donald Trump got over Benjamin Netanyahu? I've got no idea. I think that from the last podcast that we did, my guest did say that, and he does know people within the inner sanctum of the military political sort of transatlantic relationship. And he said, look, it was really a case of Benjamin Netanyahu briefing Donald Trump and Donald Trump saying yes. So the tail wagged the dog. It was not Donald Trump who made this decision. He was, I don't know, I'll put it politely, conned maybe into fighting a war that should never have happened. There are so many different ways, Jeremy, that we could have contained the Iranians or dealt with the Iranians without this war. This war was arguably, and looking at America's litany of military failures, I mean, this would have to be the most useless war that they have come across, and yet the most damaging. So there is no logic to it.
No, no. Sky News has just said, released this. Wall Street and the ASX 200 have rallied after US President Donald Trump halted strikes on Iran and delivered positive news on a possible breakthrough peace deal. So, I mean, this has happened before, hasn't it?
It's happened multiple times before. I mean, I think people now are so cynical about Donald Trump that they've actually started to pattern how many times Donald Trump has said he's won the war, he's going to have a peace deal within 1 or 2 days, and we're talking multiple occasions over the last few months that he said just this. Now, anyone that has any clue about international relations and diplomacy knows that when you want to get an opponent to sit down at the table, firstly, you need a disciplined commander-in-chief that doesn't shoot his mouth off every 5 minutes. You need to have a disciplined cabinet who knows what they're talking about and has a coherent plan. And you need to be able to rein in allies like Israel so they don't decide to play spoiler when it suits them, throwing you under the bus and at the same time. So you need to have a coterie thing, and that takes time, Jeremy. It takes a lot of time to set this all up. But if every time the commander in chief shoots his mouth off, the diplomacy gets undermined. Oh, and by the way, we haven't even talked about the people, his emissaries that he sends off to negotiate with the Iranians. His son-in-law Jared Kushner and real estate developer Steve Witkoff. Neither of them who understand anything about the Middle East, well, except for Israel and property development. And neither of them know anything about diplomacy. And yet we've got rank amateurs basically running the very head of the State Department. And they're not even State Department people. Marco Rubio should be front and center in all of this. My question to you is, where the hell is Marco Rubio? He's sitting at home, licking his wounds because Trump keeps on throwing Kushner and Witkoff out there. I mean, these two people are, can I say numbnuts? They're numbnuts.
Why not?
Right, then,
Why not? But maybe he's just keeping his distance because he doesn't really want to be associated too closely.
well, yeah, well, maybe, but, well, I mean, he does have his own presidential aspirations. Perhaps that's the case.
Understandable. Listen to this. What's your opinion on this? Your air fryer might be the most useful gadget in the kitchen, but experts warn today that it might be getting up to a lot more than cooking your chips.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the Information Commissioner's Office, which is the ICO, cautions that smart devices such as toasters and air fryers could be harvesting your personal information. What about that?
Well, Jeremy, I like my air fryer. I use it quite frequently. It comes in handy when I'm cooking the chips. Yeah. But
However, it could also be your flashy smart TV, which could be the worst culprit of all, harvesting data on what you watch and when you watch it.
Well, look, I only had an experience last Saturday night. I was with a friend, and we were having conversation, and my watch started intervening and talking back to me, and I'm thinking to myself, well, there you go. I've got a smart watch. The smart watch is spying on me. It's probably relaying everything to Mark Zuckerberg right now and Jeff Bezos, and everyone knows exactly what kind of wine I like to drink and what sort of pizza I like to eat. I mean, gee whiz, there is no privacy these days.
Well, they have to do something while in between counting their money. I don't know. What's on your podcast next?
Well, next we will be talking. Well, we have spoken with one of the leading lights, Julian Lindsay French, and we are talking about whether Britain, one of the world's great powers, why is it struggling with defence? And we've just had the recent resignation of Defence Secretary John Healey. So this is a very significant moment, and we're right up there on the focus.
Dr. John Bruni, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Bye.